Hey friends, it's Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. I recently got a comment on one of my videos asking me how I write 4 books per year, so I thought it would be interesting to do a video on that. I'm not sure if this video will be what you were looking for, but there are some factors that I feel like I need to explain, because we all know that everybody's writing processes look differently, and I think this is just a perfect example of that. So the video this comment was left on was my 2022 goals video, in which I said that one of my goals for this year was to write 4 books, basically business as usual. However, when I made that video, I didn't have the job that I currently do now, so I was basically working as a full-time author at that point, trying to perfect my craft as best as possible. And currently, I have a full-time day job, which, while very flexible, and I'm very grateful for that, does eat up some of my time, so I don't have as much time to devote solely to writing as I did before, and I may not end up writing 4 books this year. I may only write 3, it just depends on how things end up falling into place, whether I can write that 4th book this year or not. Currently, I'm filming this video in June, obviously, so we're basically halfway through the year, and I have 2 books written, so I very well could get the other 2 written by the end of the year, but it just depends on how things turn out. Some books I have to do more research for than others. Obviously, historical books take research where fantasy books do not. Another thing that helps me, that allows me to write as much as I do, is that I type really fast, and this is something that comes from experience. I don't usually take that much time in the day to write, and then in between book projects I take maybe 1 to 2, sometimes 3 months off in between book projects, although 3 months is pushing it. And so I definitely don't write every day, and I know that there are lots of people who do. There are lots of people who definitely do not take this long a break in between their book projects, but I just find that it helps me to reset, because I need to just let a book sit for a little while after I've finished it. I can't just immediately leap into the next one, and then in between I'm reading a lot, I'm doing research. When I am writing something, I do tend to write pretty much every day, unless there's just something that comes up that prevents me from doing so. So when I do write, I don't spend a lot of time in the day doing it, usually 1 to 2 hours, with 1.5 hours being the sweet spot. I can write about 2,000 words in 1 hour, which is mostly the daily goal that I go by. If I write 2,000 words, I feel good about the work that I have done that day, and then with my wrist acting up sometimes, it can be difficult to type more than that, but it just depends, really. The point I'm trying to make is that I can type really fast, and so I can get quote-unquote more work done in a less amount of time than some people may be able to. When I go to write, I typically don't sit there and stare at the screen and wonder what needs to be typed next, or I don't get stuck a lot and I don't get distracted. I realize I'm kind of lucky for that, I guess, because I know that some people struggle with those things, but that's something that came out of experience. I type as fast as I do because I've been typing as long as I have, and ever since I went to outlining my books, I don't get stuck, I don't take as long, I know exactly where I'm going, and that's why I very much advocate for using a outline. I would never go back to where I was before I started using them. And then part of the experience just comes from the fact that I have been writing with professional intent for 12 years. And what I mean by professional intent is that 12 years ago I decided that I wanted writing to be my career, and so that's what I dedicated myself to. There was 1 year where I didn't really get a lot of writing done, but basically 12 years straight I have been doing nothing but writing, for the most part. Now, obviously that I have a job that is separate from that, that digs into the time that I can write a little bit. But obviously when I was first starting out, I couldn't write as fast, I wasn't as productive, I was still trying to come up with my storylines and characters and figure out where I was going with this. So it definitely is a process, and the more experience you have with writing, I think the better you get at it in terms of just being more productive. But again, it's different for everybody, and I try to think of it as progress is still progress, even if it's slow progress. So I definitely don't want people to beat themselves up about it if they're not getting as much done, or they feel like they're not doing as much as they think they should be and they're somehow not a real writer because of that. It's different for everybody, and that's one of the things that makes writing so great, I think, is because it's very flexible. You can write as much or as little as you want, you can write wherever you want, and I don't think that there are a lot of jobs that are probably like that. Another thing that helps me write 4 books a year is that the books that I write are either rewrites of rewrites of rewrites, or they're the next book in line in a series that I've been writing. So for my fantasy books, for the most part, I've been rewriting and rewriting and rewriting them over and over and over again over the years, trying to get them to be perfect or be good enough that I would feel comfortable putting them out there, which that's a trap that you can fall into. It's got its own pitfalls associated with it. You don't want to publish something that's not ready to be put out there, but then if you never feel like it's ready and you constantly keep rewriting it, you may never find yourself putting it out there. But my fantasies I have kept rewriting over the years and weeding out the plot holes with every new draft until it is getting better. I do see the progress made. But the reason that I bring this up is that it's not like I'm making a completely new draft that I have to come up with from scratch. I build upon what I've already built in the past and try to make it better, which obviously makes writing 4 books a year easier because I don't have to devote the time to coming up with a completely new idea. Same thing with my series. I have 2 mystery series that are historical fiction. One is a Victorian series that is set in late 1800s London, and the other one is set in 1920s Los Angeles. And currently I only have one in the 1920 series written. I wrote it last November for NaNoWriMo. And with my Victorian series, I have 11 books written in that. I started writing those in late fall, early winter of 2017, and I've just been writing them ever since. And I would write 2 of those per year until now that I have this other series I have to worry about. So I'm probably only going to try to write 1 in each series now moving forward. They have to share a little bit. But with my Victorian series, it's easy to write those in the same way it is with the fantasy, because although each new book in the series is a new draft that I have to come up with, the characters and the world and the relationships are all pretty well established by this point. I just finished writing the 11th mystery earlier this year. That was my first book for this year that I wrote, and so each mystery presents its own challenges, especially when you're dealing with historical things, but as I said, I do have the bones of the series established. I'm not coming up with things that are brand new like I did when I wrote the first book in the 1920 series. But as I move forward, that series will grow and be established and be easier to write, just like the Victorian one is at this point. If I was coming up with a brand new story idea and a brand new draft every single time, there's no way that I would write 4 books per year, most likely, because it takes way more time to come up with all of your ideas and turn it into an outline, a plot that is coherent and makes sense. And it's hard enough sometimes to do that with each mystery, because that's a brand new draft and mysteries are challenging in ways that fantasies are not, and you have to rely more on, is this realistic, does this make sense? Because it deals with the real world and real things like forensics and just criminology type stuff, so that's hard enough as it is. If I had to try to do that completely new every single time, there's no way I'd get 4 books per year done. So that definitely helps, the fact that I'm pretty familiar already with all the things that I'm writing, because they're either well-established series or I'm rewriting them for like the bajillionth time. So the comment that I got that inspired this video asked me what my schedule looks like, and before I had my day job, it basically looked like a normal day. I would write after I ate lunch, I would read for about an hour, and then at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that's when I'd write. I prefer to write in the afternoon, I always have. I don't really see that changing now with my day job. I kind of prefer to write in the evenings once everything work-oriented is over with. The evenings are then the calmest part of the day, but I'd still prefer, if possible, to write in the afternoon, because even though I write very fast and I don't take a lot of time out of the day to just sit down and write, if I did decide to do that, the afternoons are the longest stretch of uninterrupted time that I have, so I could write from 2 to 5 if I wanted to, even though I usually don't. It just depends. Afternoons are my favorite time to write. I know a lot of people are either night owls or morning people. I don't think I could ever be a morning person with writing, just because my brain is not awake yet, and sometimes it's hard to write in the evenings because my brain feels fried after a day busy doing things, but you just have to find a time that works for you, and that's another thing that I've had to adapt to with my day job. I no longer have the freedom to write whenever I want the way I did when I was a full-time author, so you just kind of sneak the writing in there where you can. And again, if I'm rewriting a book with characters in a world that I'm already familiar with, that makes my life so much easier because it helps me to focus on things that I already know so well. So that's basically what allows me to write as many books as I do. It's not as simple as I just write 4 books, and if I was coming up with brand new story ideas, there's absolutely no way I could do it. I don't know if this video is what you were expecting. I don't know if it's in any way helpful, but I did think it was an interesting topic to explore. It will be interesting to see if I write 4 books this year. I already know that the books that I had originally planned to write this year have already changed, so if I do end up writing all 4 books this year, they're not necessarily going to be the books that I anticipated writing when I started the year. So thank you all for watching this video. I hope it wasn't too rambly and that I made sense. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!